You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and here today, we want to cover reviews. As you know, we've talked about in a lot of previous episodes, everything that we're dealing with in the digital space right now, it requires us to go to the next level, continuously learning, continuously adapting, and ratings and reviews are something that I think a lot of people have, just taken for granted for a while, the strategy behind them. And we're doing a webinar a few weeks back with Gautam and the team at Yogi. And it just came out from a lot of brands on the call, as well as the Yogi team, that, there's a whole next level of how you're going to use ratings and reviews. And so we want to cover a variety of things, right? Is reviews analysis. How should people be thinking about it? Where are we using it? How can we use it and build it into PDP? How are brands using it for product research and defining new products and what they should be doing? How are they looking at it from a competition standpoint? How are they generating it? And so these are all a bunch of stuff that we want to tackle in today's episode. So, but first I want to, we have a great friend, partner, supporter of the network, Gautam over at Yogi. And do you want to jump in, do a brief intro on yourself and Yogi? That'd be awesome. And then we can kind of kick off the conversation. Sound good?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Thanks for having me, Aaron. Definitely a big fan of the podcast, and I'm honored. I know you had a lot of great guests. But hi, everyone. My name's Gautam. I'm co-founder and CEO of Yogi. So Yogi's a product sentiment platform that makes it very easy, just fundamentally, for brands to understand what shoppers like and dislike. And the way that we do this is we, like kind of Aaron alluded to, we tap into a highly valuable yet underutilized data source from brands, which is reviews and ratings. Not only because they're highly influential at the point of purchase, but also because when you think of what reviews and ratings really are, they're essentially this unfiltered focus group of tens of thousands of actual purchasers. And so when you can tap into that data source in the right way, there's a huge amount of valuable insights and just downstream business action that can come from that. So yeah, excited to dive in.
Yeah, when we take a look at how should people be thinking about, ratings, reviews, analysis as a whole? I think that's number one, right? How many different platforms should people be looking at? Like, when does it get important? Is it, hey, once you've hit 5 reviews, is it, 100? Like, how should people be thinking about gathering this information as a whole?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's the way that we generally look at it is there's different stages to the journey when it comes to reviews and ratings analysis. The thing that we've kind of fundamentally seen is from the moment that you start getting reviews, you shouldn't just understand what your average star rating is and what your volume is, but what are people talking about in those reviews? That's a question that you should have the answer to at all times. And so generally what we see is when you're kind of in the range of, let's say, 10, 20, maybe even upwards of 50 new reviews per week. That might be at the level that you're able to just once a week, maybe take an hour out of your morning to kind of scroll through and just generally get a sense of what's going on. But it's really once you start to reach the scale of like thousands of reviews or hundreds into thousands of reviews, as well as when you want to really start to benchmark yourself against competitors. That's when you start to need a tool for analyzing your reviews and ratings. And now whenever people look at kind of their reviews and ratings, let's say tech stack, you have your typical kind of review aggregators, right? Your Bazaar Voices, your Power Reviews, which are very important parts of the tech stack and offer kind of some degree of analysis. But at the end of the day, it really is just what's my star rating, what's my volume across a certain amount of retailers. Where reviews and ratings analysis platform like Yogi starts to really become useful is truly understanding like, hey, what are people talking about in my 1-star reviews? Or when people talk about the taste or the texture of my product, is it more positive? Is it more negative? And how does that compare to the competition? And I think that latter point is a really, really important one to harp on because whenever you do data analysis, there's an interesting analogy that I heard from somebody yesterday, which was like, for every point of data, the question they always ask is, what is this compared to? Because it's one thing for you to be able to say, hey, I have a 4.7 star rating or something like that. But if the market average is a 4.8 or a 4.9, that's not something to be proud of. That's something that you have to push yourself forward on. And so that's really the at the end of the day, once you start to want to be able to answer those level of questions, that's when adding a tool in the reviews and ratings analysis space becomes useful in your tech stack.
Then, if people are thinking about this as a whole, like, what are best in class, people, what are they doing? So, things that come to mind, what you're kind of saying is, number one, identifying the products that I'm going to look at, going beyond just, the star rating as a whole, but doing the deep dive, getting the sentiment analysis. The next thing that comes to mind is, the competition, right? Is this what best in class? Or are we now at the level where you pretty much have to go out and see what the competition is doing as well and analyzing that?
Yeah. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what we see best in class organizations sort of do is they have three critical boxes checked, I would say. The first is just purely from the organization side of things. It's not just one retailer or two retailers that they have visibility into. They have visibility into every single retailer that they sell on. And the same goes for their competitor data as well. And so it's not just, hey, this is how we compare to the overall market on Walmart or something, but this is how we compare to this specific competitor, or this is how we compare to brand Y on retailer Z, for example. And so being able to have that level of organized data becomes important. The second box is the analysis piece. So really being able to not just have that data, but being able to access it in the right and proper ways. And so it's not just, I think the thing that we always generally see whenever people think about reviews and ratings metrics is just, hey, what's my star rating? What's my volume? And that's a useful metric. I'm not saying like don't do that, but whenever you see a shift from a 4.4 to a 4.2, for example, you need to be able to answer the question, why is that happening? Is that a drop in the, like, that temporary? Is that a trend? Is that happening with everybody in the market? Is it just us? Is it on a certain retailer? Like, those are all very important questions to answer. And so being able to quickly get to those sub answers is like the second box to check. And then the third one, I would honestly say is a little bit more like organize the behavior of the organization. And what I mean by that is, fundamentally, reviews and ratings are customer feedback, right? They could be related to something in marketing, something about the product, shipping and handling. It can affect all teams all across the company. And so just being able to get that information to the right people, and as much as you can push for action based on that information, is really, really important. And there's, at the end of the day, I think what we've seen is when you can make a data-driven claim, not just, hey, folks, I'm seeing these 2 reviews about complaints about our taste, versus, hey, I've actually seen that the sentiment of our taste has fallen. Here's a handful of reviews, and now look at why we're underperforming our main competitor. Like that, when you can make that secondary argument, a lot more people are willing to listen and therefore make business actions from it. Because that's what it is at the end of the day, right? Like if there's no business action from this, from any data, it's sort of a moot point.
Right. It's just, I don't know. Everything's getting more complicated. That's reality, right? We used to just take a look at it and say, hey, I need to get to 25 plus reviews with a 4.6 star rating or better, and then I'm going to be okay. And that's not necessarily true anymore. Kind of like the point you were saying, what are you comparing it to? Right. So now you need to know, okay, well, hey, I've got my 4.5 star review. I've got 25 of them. But what if the competition is at 4.7 and has 150? Now, what used to be a good benchmark, and it was for the longest time we used it, that 25 and 4.5 was fantastic. That's just not enough anymore. It's not enough just to look at your products. That's what I used to do all the time, is I would just go through my products and ratings and reviews and look at the reviews and see what's going on. But again, I need to also be looking at the competition. And then the next layer of that competition piece that I constantly remind brands of is, this isn't necessarily the same brand that's sitting next to you on a store shelf, right? You actually have to go find, who's number one, number two, number three, number four bestseller in the category, and where do you fall in relation to them? Which, a lot of times you're like, oh, my competition is, the same one that sits next to me on the store shelf. And it's not necessarily true. So then getting strategic around, okay, not only my products and what I'm looking for and the KPIs around them, but also what are the strategic products that my competition are on every marketplace by marketplace. And then, what the next thing I want to just continue, because I love what you were saying around what's actionable. Then with that data, now I can start to craft a different PDP, right? It used to be you just do this, you go use a tool that helps you out with the SEO and the terms and what's the highest search terms, and you build, your title and your bullet points around that. But now, in all reality, we probably want to be looking at, hey, if everybody's complaining about our competition's, horrible taste, you can put best tasting sucker on the market. I don't know. But are you seeing people then using it to build out PDP as well?
Yeah, 100%. No, that's definitely one of kind of the newer but critical kind of use cases we've been seeing coming out of the data from Yogi. And I'll tell you kind of how it breaks down. There's kind of various layers to it. The first one is just making sure that you are understanding and meeting consumer expectations, right? Because the thing about the digital shelf is it's digital. Like you're not there, you don't see the product, it gets delivered to you. So there's always a little bit of an assumption of what the person is expecting when they hit purchase. So we have one customer, for example, that makes a product that lasts for 60 days, but the bottle is this big. And I'm talking like tiny. And so pretty much what it is when you look at it on the PDP, it's a full size image. So you're expecting a bottle that's maybe like the size of, let's say, Costco Tylenol pain medicine, like a 100-tablet one. But what you're really getting is like a 10-tablet package. And so what was happening is, for this company, they were getting a lot of 1-star reviews or even like 3-star reviews of people being like, oh yeah, this product works fine. It's just smaller than I expected. And so by them just being able to reframe the messaging less around like, oh, look at how big this bottle is, to, hey, this lasts you 60 days. Like, you're getting a 60-day supply. Small bottle packs a big punch. You're able to eliminate a lot of that negative feedback. Inherently, your average star rating goes up because you just met consumer expectations, right? Or you set the right expectations. The other layer to it that we've seen is just being able to adjust what is important. So obviously marketing does a lot of great research and all that stuff. And you have kind of an assumption when you go in and you build your PDP of, hey, number one driver is going to be taste, then number two is texture, then number three is something else. But as reviews and ratings come in, what you're going to start to learn is, hey, is what I'm thinking are the main points of emphasis really what comes up the most often in reviews? Or is it the most positively talked about piece of this product? And when you really get visibility into that of, hey, we used to think our taste or our texture was really good, but it really turns out that the taste of this specific product is what really stands out. Hey, how can we emphasize that in images and in bullet points? That starts to make a difference. We've even seen to the point of, based on what people see in reviews, they end up just not even rewriting bullet points, just switching the order. And it actually makes a difference and drives different consumer conversation. The third thing that we've actually seen that's the most interesting, or like the most kind of top of mind, is we actually have two customers. It's not specifically related to PDPs, but it ties to the competitive piece. Is they're almost building out kind of this like framework or automated pipeline of, here are our reviews, here are our core competitors. When we see a drop in sentiment or rating with a core competitor, automatically feed it to our Amazon ad platform to target those ASINs specifically.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where
another
things start to
level.
get very dynamic. Exactly. Yep. Because the thing that I think people should always take a step back on, not specifically with reviews, but honestly any data, is just like, what is the shopper behavior? And one of the things that I think is everybody will understand is the things that people do most often when they read reviews is they go sort by most recent, right? And so you can have an average star rating of 4.7, but when somebody hits most recent and the 6 latest reviews come up and 2 of them are 1 star, people are going to move to look for a different product. And so even just being able to realize that, not only for your product, and understanding, okay, hey, here's the thing, how do we make a quick change to help with this? But understanding, hey, this happened to these 3 competitors, let me just target them for the next few weeks. That's how you start to build up kind of that momentum.
That's super interesting. Actually leveraging ratings and reviews in real time of the competition to guide paid media behavior.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all comes together at some point. So
No,
really.
I mean, and at the same time, right, you see that going down. Maybe the bottle is hard to open, right? So you see it start to trend down. And then you can also, not only can you target all those, you can target it with an ad, and you can also drive it to your product that's an easy open. You can do that as a bullet point or in the product description, or easy open cap, like right away. And then now we can actually very strategically influence, be smarter with our money where we're spending it, who are targeting our bid terms, the competition, and then growing. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Exactly.
So another thing that's top of mind for me is, do you have people then using this instead of focus groups? Because you'd mentioned that at the beginning. Because it is almost a focus group. Kind of when you were, right at the get-go of this episode, you're talking a little bit about the focus group, because that's what ratings and reviews are. Like, have you seen companies then start to gather this data instead of doing a focus group? Because to your point, you have this idea of what you think are the most important attributes around your product, but we had to wait for people to tell us. And sometimes when you put people in a focus group and they know they're in a focus group, like the data is skewed, right? Because they know that they're there, as opposed to people who don't know that they're in a focus group. They're just giving raw feedback around the product. It's almost like truer data. Like, it's almost, I'd rather have a platform at this point in time that's looking at sentiment and scraping all of my product data as well as my competition across the entire category and multiple marketplaces to see, rather than doing a focus group, which then I launch and I have to wait for real customer data back anyway.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we hear a lot of brands struggle with when it comes to focus groups or even like targeted surveys to certain panels or audiences is you never truly, there's the bias that comes with being in the focus group, being in the survey. To some extent, the people that do self-volunteer to be in focus groups and surveys, but generally you're never really 100% sure if they're an actual user. The amount of times that I've heard brands say, oh yeah, we built this this panel of folks, they all said they use our product. When we asked them to bring in the packaging, they were bringing in completely different products that we weren't even like referencing, not even like a different flavor. Like, oh, I want to use whatever it is. Like, I'm asking you if you use our mouthwash and you brought our toothpaste product or something. And so the thing is when you can, because reviews, or which ones are verified reviews, these are people that actually bought the product and used the product. So it is a very, very accurate audience from that perspective. What we've seen is some companies have started to like reduce somewhat the need for their focus groups and some of their surveys. Now, I'll be totally transparent in saying it's not a complete replacement for them, but what the reviews and ratings analysis is really, really great in answering is a lot of your sentiment related questions. Like, how are we doing overall? How is our sentiment when people talk about a product attribute, taste, texture, durability, sound, volume, whatever it is? And then how does that compare across another variable? by retailer compared to a competitor, compared to the overall market. And how often is it being talked about? All that kind of stuff. Those are great examples of questions that reviews and ratings and good reviews and ratings analysis can answer that you don't get a good answer anywhere else. Now, what we've started to see, what I would say is, and there's a few folks that we work with that are like best in class, is they actually start to use Yogi data to better inform what they're going to ask in the focus group. So, okay, we're thinking of going into a new product category that we don't know or that we've never operated in before. Okay, we're going to pull in all the reviews for it, get an understanding of where the market is, what do people talk about, where are all the brands underperforming. And now that we know that, we have some hypotheses, and now we're going to test these hypotheses in this focus group that we're running in the next few weeks. And so it almost, at the end of the day, what it does is it allows you to hone in and ask the right questions in that domain versus going in with a gut feel or some assumptions around it. So it becomes really interesting stuff, because at the end of the day, it is very valuable customer feedback.
Another thing that comes is the brands that are looking at new product development. I can see harvesting ratings and reviews pretty regularly, especially if I have multiple categories, tons of products, and I'm expected to put out, 100 plus new products every year. I mean, this seems like a primary way is you're harvesting ratings, reviews, and feedback to see, hey, I'm going to tell my design team, make the handle longer, make the handle shorter, whatever it may be. Is that?
Yep.
You're seeing that as well?
Yeah, 100%. That's where, it really is all about gathering. That's where the market-wide analysis becomes very important and very useful, because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, there's certain people that are creating a brand new category, and that's very hard to do. But 9 times out of 10, you're breaking into a category where there are competitors that exist, and so you can't come in being a copy or talking about the exact same things that they're talking about. And so just really understanding, hey, where are the competitors overperforming? Where are they underperforming? And how does that compare to what people find important? Because all it takes is the opportunity to differentiate in just 1 or 2 ways. And if you can find the 1 or 2 ways that people complain about the other products, that's what makes the difference. I mean, that's just fundamental with kind of product innovation when you think about it. But really truly knowing that information going into the development of the product with our data from real customers, that's what makes the difference, because you're more likely to get to the right answer, if you will, because you can trust your data.
Yeah. What have I missed so far? Like, I'm trying to, I'm talking to 20 or 30 brands a week to try and stay on top of this stuff, and then jotting down questions and then using kind of the podcast to tackle those for people to listen real time. This stuff has been fantastic, especially the advertising piece. That's new. Are there other things that I haven't asked you about that come up pretty regularly? How best in class people should be using ratings and reviews?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the other thing, and we sort of touched on the pieces that build into this, but there's also the just when you launch a new product, right? All of these retailers have their different scorecards and their different requirements of, you need to have at least 7 reviews, 10 reviews, 100 reviews when you enter, with at least this minimum star rating. But one of the and there's ways for you to kind of generate those reviews, right? Like, you have your promotional programs, maybe on Amazon, it's Best Buy, it's Tech Insiders Network. There's other options out there. But at the end of the day, that I think what that is it's the kickstart of the flywheel. But there's a really important piece around the difference sort of between promotional reviews and organic reviews at the end of the day, right? There's only so much that you could, if it's a poorly performing product, or if there's a mismatch of expectations, there's only so much you can do from a promotional standpoint to keep your star rating propped up. And so being able to just understand that and having everybody have visibility into that is super important. There's something to be said about, hey, we already decided this is how the product's going to work. It comes out, it doesn't perform up to standard, and just understanding why that is. But also, we've had clients who put out a product in the first month or two, it's not performing up to par from an organic review standpoint, but it's actually a fixable thing from a marketing or a PDP standpoint, that if they can catch that early enough and make that alteration, it takes a product that maybe was teetering on the edge of success, not success. Because Aaron, I know I've heard you talk about it. Like those first few weeks on that launch, like it's do or die when you're listed on Amazon or Walmart that first time. So making sure that you give it the best chance to succeed is super, super important.
No, I mean, that's the reality is, as a whole, a lot of times the consumer mindset mimics a sheep mindset, right? If the first 3 or, 4 out of the first 5, give it a 2 or a 3-star review, everybody behind it, 90% of the people behind it are going to give it a 2 or 3-star review, unless, like you're saying, you can catch it and they gave it to it because they had some specific call out. Now, it's different if it said, hey, this is a horrible product, or it burned my eyeballs or something like that, right? Where you're going to actually have to take it down. But if that's another thing, new product launch. I love it. When you're launching a new product, monitor that day in and day out. And then as quickly as you can, if there is an issue, flip it. But also a new product launch ahead of time, you should be able to scrape all the competition in that category and literally build it and address it ahead of time. And so you can kind of minimize that stuff. Now, the reality is the product's the product, and, trying to put lipstick on a pig doesn't always work out that well. So no, I love that from that standpoint. How do people like prioritize, like, what do you do, right, when you're going to get a ton of feedback? We'll say, new item launch is one thing, immediately, but we'll say somebody kicks off like a review analysis and they're just inundated. How do they prioritize changes they make? Is it PDP first? Obviously, it's probably not product right away. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'll kind of kick it over to you. The advertising piece. How should brands think about gathering the information and then executing some kind of action that, has a positive impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. We generally see it as sort of like a timeline of what is the change that can be made, right? So your low-hanging fruit at the end of the day is things like your PDP changes and your advertising kind of strategy changes, right? Those are something that, hey, you make your change to the PDP, it's going to be posted within a few hours or something like that. Or maybe even the longest that we've heard from like a process standpoint, you have to put things through legal, but we're still talking on the order of weeks, not months or years to kind of make those changes. So those tend to be the low-hanging fruit of just understanding. At the end of the day, the way that it starts with analysis is you have to understand the why of it, right? So, okay, we know what is happening. Here are the 5 products that are underperforming. Now we understand what is the why behind them. 3 of them might just be fundamental product issues that you have to share the feedback with your product team, and it's going to take 12 months, 18 months, 24 months for the change to be made. That's the reality of the business that we work in, that we live in. And so that's part of it. But 2 of them might actually be, hey, people are using the product in the wrong way, or they're thinking they're getting this, but they're actually getting that. And so when you see those opportunities, that's where you can start to make PDP changes, or noticing that a competitor is underperforming and targeting them accordingly. So when we look at the range of changes, the way that we like to say it is things that are like PDP or advertising strategy related. That's your low-hanging fruit. Those are changes that you can make kind of relatively quickly. Your medium changes tend to be kind of a little bit more on your marketing end, if you will, right? Like, okay, what are the claims that we should be emphasizing? Are there changes that we can make to what we're emphasizing, so on and so forth. And then your longer term changes are like packaging or product or innovation. Now, inherently what's going to happen is every product, every brand, every category is different. And so there's going to be some that just require an update to the product. And so that feedback should be shared and the timeline will run itself through. But there's always going to be opportunities to make smaller, quicker enhancements that will return ROI, right? Because at the end of the day, if you can find ways to even bump your conversion rate by 1% or something like that, right? Like that's real money that's coming back to you purely just from what you're able to gather from feedback that customers are leaving you.
Hey, do you think like there's always pushback internally, right? If you're saying you need to change the cap, I mean, that's an issue, right? That's a tooling change. Maybe it's just change the carton. So maybe it's an artwork change or a carton height. Like a lot of these things, maybe it's, hey, change the entire formula. Like a lot of these things are, I don't know, if the data is valuable, like how are people compiling the data and delivering it so they have like a real case? Because internally, people don't want to change. That's just the reality. Obviously sales, they want to have the best possible product out there so it can sell through. Marketing wants to have a product they can feel good about marketing. And so they're like the champions of taking this stuff and doing an update. But like, are you seeing like brands that now aggregate all of this data specifically to put together a case in the instances where we actually need to do some significant internal changes? And maybe it is on the sales side going back, it's like, hey, marketing, you need to target a completely other set of brands of competition or products that are out there. Like, how are people gathering that data? Is that something that's happening right now?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think where we have generally seen it build out, right? Like when you're making the case for a change, because like you said, people don't want to change. And also people don't want to hear like, hey, something that I thought was going to work is not currently working. And so,
right. I mean, when you have people putting together the product, the design team, and they put it out, you're going back saying, hey, you made a mistake. This product is flawed. They're taking it personally.
Yep.
Right. So you can't just go in there and say, hey, I read a review and this product's flawed. Well, we need to change it. They're going to say, forget yourself. Right. Like
exactly. And
I'm the expert here at designing products, stick to selling them.
Yeah. 100%. And kind of what we've seen is it's interesting. There's actually one conversation that I had, I think it was earlier this year with a customer that mentioned to me, she would manually kind of read reviews on like a Friday morning or something like that. And if she ever noticed 2 or 3 reviews talking about the same thing, she would take a screenshot and send it to her product team. And a lot of times that email would never get returned or never replied back to or something like that. After using kind of Yogi, what she was able to do is be able to send, hey, our sentiment on this is underperforming these other 4 competitors. Here's the negative reviews from us. Here's positive reviews from our competitors. And this was like the cherry on top. Here's the one review that Yogi pointed out of somebody saying they used to use our product. Now they're using this product. Like, here's the data for you. And that like resulted in a meeting that conversation was had and at least like the experimentation and it was more deeply looked at. And so it's just a classic case of like making the business argument, right? So you can say, hey folks, I think this is a problem. And some people might listen, they may not. Hey folks, I think this is a problem. Here's 1 or 2 reviews that are backing this up. Or, hey folks, this is a problem. Here's like foundational data that I have that shows that we're now underperforming the market. It is affecting us poorly. We're not doing as well as we think. And here's all the feedback to back it up. People can't ignore the last case. And so that's where it really starts to make a difference.
Yeah, interesting. So the next thing I want to bring up is around AI as a whole. Like, how do you see that making its way in to the space? So we have generative AI. I've done, a couple podcasts on it so far because it's so interesting to people. It's changing so quickly. Do you see that, like, people been taking this data that you're grabbing and then crunching it and having it kick out info? Like,
yeah, it's a great question. I could talk hours about AI. I used to work on AI at Microsoft and stuff like that. But pretty much what I think we're starting to see is it's actually interesting. AI is a very kind of loaded and huge umbrella term, right? So when we look at like our platform, right, Yogi, for example, we've been using sort of artificial intelligence and you can consider it a subset of artificial intelligence called neural networks in our platform from day one. That's how we're able to analyze the text. That's how we're able to get the sentiment very, very accurate. And that's been kind of a ongoing trend, doing it from an accurate perspective, scalable perspective. So in a way, AI has always kind of been part of this domain, if you will. Now, obviously, there's a ton of excitement. I'm even very excited about GPT, ChatGPT, OpenAI, or just large language models in general. And I think kind of what we're seeing is what these models are extremely good at is taking large amounts of kind of qualitative information and synthesizing it to a few kind of cogent points. And so we're going to start to see more and more of kind of like two sides of things, I would say. The first thing is just and I even hear it kind of like all the time. Hey, I've started to feed reviews and ratings into GPT, kind of get me a summary of what's going on. And whenever I hear that, that honestly actually excites me, right? Because what it means is people understand the value of this data source, and what GPT is going to be able to output to you is, hey, here are some things that people are talking negatively about the product, or here are some things that are talked positively about the product. And that gives you kind of that layer one analysis that's very, very useful. Now, to make the business case for it, you have to now do kind of layer 2, layer 3, and layer 4, right? Okay, how does this compare to the competition? How has this been trending over time? How does this compare across retailers? All those questions. That's kind of what we're focused on from a platform perspective. So that's one thing when it comes to analysis, where we've seen the most excitement from a generative sort of AI piece is around things like people experimenting with optimizing PDP bullets, for example, or maybe A+ content based on it. But instead of feeding in like, hey, here are our current bullets, or here's some reviews, come out with it. What you can actually start to do is, based on what you get with a specific analysis, you can better hone the algorithm. And so at the end of the day, kind of what we've seen, yes, this technology is very, very powerful, but where it is the most effective is when you give it a very specific problem to solve, right? So the more that you can focus in the problem, the better the quality of the results are going to be. So as opposed to saying, hey, here's a bunch of feedback, what should my bullet points be? It should be, the quality of results are going to be much better if you can say, hey, here are 3 things that we need you to talk about. Here are some examples of people that talk about it positively. Now build me some bullet points that are going to convince people to purchase this product, right? That might be an example of a prompt you can give to GPT. And then you're going to notice that the results are 5 to 10 times better coming out of that versus asking it to kind of boil the ocean from that perspective. So yeah, so that's kind of what we've been seeing from.
I mean, they say it's all about the prompts, right? It's all about the prompts, and whoever can write the best prompts is going to get the best content back out. That's just the reality.
Yep. And the more you can focus in on the problem, it's with kind of anything. It's a thing that we learn in programming, which is the more you can make things into smaller modules, it just scales better and it's easier to kind of maintain, right? So it's not about asking GPT, or I'll take an example of if I was back in college, like it's not about asking GPT, or back to applying to college. It's not about asking GPT to write me an amazing college essay. It's like, no, okay, here are some specific parameters. Talk about this, emphasize this, okay, change this, and then you end up coming out with a much better result. Not that I'm telling people to do that on their college essays, but just example.
Yeah, but how many people do you think are doing that right now at a very high level? Because kind of what you've outlined is where I see a lot of people using it today, which is like, hey, this is my product, this is my competition's, write me a product description that will go on Amazon. And that's good. It's just not next level, right? How many people do you think are using it at the next level? Because I don't think it's a ton right now. I think a lot of the restriction is just, larger brands, people don't have the time, right? And they're not spending enough time in. I mean, I set time aside every week now to play around with the platform. Pretty much, in my mind, you have to, because it's not going away. Yeah, they might slow down the advancement. They might, but by the time we get to the point, they're going to slow it down, right? It's going to be a year from now, and it's going to have, quintupled in knowledge and and reach. But how many people do you think? Is it a ton? Do you think?
Yeah, not a lot. I think everybody is still, the sense that we get is everybody's in a wait and see mode, right? It's like everybody is um, standing outside the pool and waiting for kind of like somebody to really sort of jump in. The brands that we've seen that have embraced it a little bit more, kind of to your point, Aaron, is the smaller brands, right? The ones that have
Yeah.
they're the ones that are like, hey, I have 150 different PDPs to maintain. Like, I'm not going to rewrite all these bullets. I'm going to send it to GPT.
Yeah, but they also don't have 50 years of brand equity, right? They don't have legal teams. They don't, massive legal teams or compliance teams or brand teams. That's off brand, right?
Yep.
So you can't use that. These smaller brands, they can shift and pivot a lot quicker. But no, I totally agree. I totally agree. It's going to be interesting, right? But that happens all the time with these smaller brands where they end up blowing up and then they get acquired,
Mhm.
right? And then sometimes the big corporate behemoths then ruin the small brand, right? Of everything they were doing because they then try to tuck them into all of those additional teams where then you can't move as fast, pivot as fast, you can't make changes as fast, right? To the product or the product design.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I think the thing that um, my kind of viewpoint on it is I think it's going to be more than anything else a great efficiency boost for folks. So in the sense of once it starts to hit the um, let's say like your larger brands, this whole talk about being more agile or having more agility, it's going to become a lot easier to do that, right? Because now with the help of um, something like ChatGPT, it's easier for me to maintain and edit like 500 PDPs as a single person. That becomes 10 times easier versus where it is now. And so because of that, a lot of the like I talk to brands that come in and say, we'd love to be able to update our PDP uh, uh, once every week or once every month at least. But we just can't because we have so many to maintain, and there's a lot of process to go through and just a lot of human effort. I think that's going to start to become much easier to do, and honestly, will start to become um, where really digital first and e-commerce first brands will start to really differentiate themselves.
Yeah, I can see the point in time where there's a platform like yours that's harvesting this data that plugs into an AI module that's also taking a look at actual product attributes that's sold over time, and then nearly in real time updating PDP based on what should be said, right? What are the best selling points? What are the highest converging ones? And it's a data game at that point in time. And then the program on the back end is constantly learning, oh, these selling points win every time. And if you don't have them, or the product doesn't have them, then it's feeding in the back end for new product development. Hey, these are the changes you need to make. Like, I just see it being very, very powerful. I think that all the pieces are there actually right now. I don't know. Nobody's quite plugged it all in together yet, but it's definitely right around the corner. So a couple things. What gets you excited about, digital space right now? And then love to chat about that. And then also, I always like to kick it over like, hey, what's top of mind for you? Like, I've been picking your brain the past 40 minutes or so. I don't mind if you throw stuff back my way, and you can pick my brain for a bit if you want.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think the thing that is exciting me the most was a lot of this things around analyzing reviews and even just the iteration of technology actually comes back to that last point of just moving faster. I know the name of the game, like one of the biggest buzzwords within these organizations is being agile, being data driven. And I think what we're starting to see is a lot of advanced tools are starting to come out to make that a reality. It's not just, oh, like, hey, let's reduce our processes, but it's how do we get more efficient as kind of teams? How can we make our team of 1,000 people just operate a little bit more efficiently? So that's something that's really exciting me. And it comes in layers. There's changes that we're making to the platform to make it so that questions that used to take 10 minutes to answer can now be answered in a minute. And then that comes down to putting like the various inputs from various systems together, exactly like you're saying, Aaron, to make like the most optimized PDP possible. And then the other one is being able to share that information out and processes in place to make it more agile. Each of these, it's like an exponential effect. They all build on each other, and we're going to start to see some really fast just movement and iterations because of that. So that's extremely exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen this year. I do think it's going to happen this year. Things are changing that fast.
Yep.
There'll be people who put the whole puzzle together.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. No. It's a fun time. It's definitely a fun time. This is a point that's always kind of been on my head because we're actually starting to see it a little bit more with reviews and ratings. But I guess, what are some interesting things that you've seen from kind of like an omni-channel perspective, or kind of what I mean by that is people taking learnings from offline and applying them online, or vice versa, online applying them to offline. I know omni-channel is a huge thing, but that's a space that we've started to keep our eye on, because we're starting to see reviews and ratings, or just metrics for reviews and ratings, show up in store. Like people are on the price tag putting it as a 4.3 rated product. So curious.
A lot around the packaging. So for the longest time, even up till recently, brands you're thinking of online that's an add-on, right? Because the large volume is still going through stores and brick and mortar. But what I've seen a lot of more lately is people, when they're doing a brand or redesign or a packaging redesign, they're actually designing it for online. Maybe that's shipping, maybe it's PDP, and they're realizing that people love the products and product shopping online, but a lot of times like to buy it in the store. Mm-hmm. And so if you had two different packages, right, because one was cheaper, then people aren't making that connection in the store. And now where it used to be all on the shelf first, and then we'll see if it's good for the digital, the real store shelf versus the digital shelf. I'm seeing this shift where, going for the digital shelf first, because we have a lot of buyers now, the in-store buyers, they're looking at ratings and reviews first. Their job actually got a lot simpler, right? It's not easy. I'm not saying that at all, but it did get simpler because you can really vet out really quickly the products, because customers are doing it first online. And then you're able to pick those and then bring those in store that were the absolute best sellers. And then the brands win because you get, the volume goes. And so it's a cool relationship that's happening. So that's one thing. But then you get into the omni-channel piece, which is, how do you track that attribution? And, there's an episode we did with Flowcode, Tim Armstrong from Flowcode, which is a QR code company where you can track offline to online attribution, which is very, very intriguing. So it goes to this next step where brands are actually trying to incorporate that into the packaging and in a meaningful way. The difference is you need to have a QR code that's, GDPR and CCPA compliant, which most aren't. Everybody's going to this free QR code generator.com. And you can't go that route, but then building into that package. I mean, that's something that's been popping up a lot. There's kind of this, like, everybody's got this giant sigh around retail media. I mean, all the retail media networks that have been popping up. I mean, Amazon works. If you're in the food space, Walmart works. Outside of that, I mean, it's a money grab by the retailers. I guess I don't blame them, because Amazon was getting all of those dollars and now the money is kind of sliding back. And the other omni-channel space is just, on drop shipping, is to be able to offer your entire catalog wherever you want. And that doesn't mean you put it all on a marketplace, but you can pick which ones you want on all these marketplaces as they're popping up, and being very, very strategic about it. But in that case, you have to have the ability to drop ship.
Right.
So those are kind of like the big things that people are thinking about from an omni-channel perspective. And I mean, brands who aren't in the store, they still want to get in the store, most of them, because that's the high volume play right there. That's the high volume play. Yeah. So super interesting. It's such a fun space to be in, right? That's the reality. It's just the interest in it keeps growing. Are there any cool things that you see popping up as we kind of get to the end here that we didn't cover today?
Yeah. I think we touched on
we hashed through a ton. Like, when you're thinking about it's just you're changing the frame of reference around ratings and reviews, and it's the next level that we all have to get to, beyond just, oh, well, I've got 25, like I was saying, 4.5 star reviews, I'm good to go. That's not good enough anymore. It's not. And the players that are out there that are winning are harvesting all this data, because it's free data and it's shared openly, and it's usually raw and authentic, and it's not biased. Which is really intriguing. And it's just, I want to say a quick thank you for jumping on today. This has been incredibly insightful. Really appreciate you and all the stuff you guys do for the network and help educate people that are out there in the digital space. And with that, I think we can probably wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks, Gautam, for your time today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll launch the next episode next week. Thanks again, everybody.